Hey folks, Randy Newberg here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio. This one is being recorded from our elk camp in New Mexico. I am here with Tim Lesser, who you've seen on our TV show in the past. He has the traveling award for shooting the largest mule deer we've ever shot on our TV show. And of all crazy things, it turned out to be a Montana public land mule deer. So, Tim, thanks for being on the podcast. You've been on the podcast before also, you and Bruce Pettit.
Yeah,
we're on the podcast.
Done one before. Well, thanks for having me. These are great.
Yeah. And so Tim wanted to do an encore here. We tried to do a public land deer elk combo in Montana 2 years ago, but it was mostly a public land deer, freeze your butt off, try to stay alive kind of thing. And also with me is, and none of you guys get to see this, what goes on behind the scenes, but Tyler Johnerson has been helping produce our show now for the last couple of years, 2-3 years. This is our third season. Yeah. And if you go and watch, there's a YouTube video that's called YouTube Exclusive Montana Elk Hunt, and you don't really see Tyler. You just see his hand in the footage of him pushing me up the hill saying, go, 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 go. And so Tyler is with us, and I asked him, how do you want to be introduced, Tyler, besides being the director of production or photography for some of our episodes of the Fresh Tracks TV show? And Tyler's a pretty humble guy. So I've given him two other titles. One is he's the destroyer of all hunting gear on the planet. If you want your elk hunting or sheep hunting gear to go through the rigors, send it to Tyler Johnerson. And if it survives, you should sell it. It will sell itself. And then in his other modesty, he doesn't share pictures of all the big elk he kills, but Tyler kills more big elk than probably anybody I'm associated with. So I'm not sure if he wants to be known as that, because now he'll get all these Facebook folks, all these Instagram folks who are like, Tyler, how do I kill a big bull? So thanks for being here, Tyler, and thanks for all the hard work you put in on the TV show.
You bet.
So, but before we get into the talk of New Mexico elk hunting and how the last 4 days unfolded for us, and if you looked at how tired, sunburned, windburned, aching, Tyler's been on a steady diet of ibuprofen. Tim just took the bandages off his knee, and I'm walking around like Quasimodo. I got a hunch on my back that you could almost, I don't know, you could probably use the hunch on my back to mount a trailer hitch on or something. So that'll give you some anticipation of what we're going to talk about, how this elk hunt unfolded. But before we do that, just want to quickly give some thanks to the companies that make this possible. As you heard in the introduction, our podcast is Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio. Leupold has been with us since Moby Dick was a minnow. It's just been a great relationship, and now they've stepped up and asked to be the title sponsor of our podcast. So I'm super happy about it, and I hope that they're super happy about it, because they are the kind of company I want to be with. The other sponsors to this, and we have really put them through the rigors in the last short while here, is Orion Coolers. I've been living out of Orion Coolers. If you saw me right now, I have been on the road for a month. I haven't shaved. I can't grow a very good beard, and what does grow is like mostly gray. I haven't had a haircut for 6 weeks, so I look like I want to be the next, what was the gambler guy, Kenny Rogers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. The guy. It's like if I slicked my hair back, as gray as it is now and as bushy as it is, people think I'm trying to imitate him or something, but I can't sing worth a damn, so we'll cross that off. But anyhow, this is a long way for me to explain that I've been living out of Orion Coolers for a long time in the last month, and they are everything you want in a cooler. At least if you are as abusive on coolers as I am, if you depend on them to keep your food cold, your meat from spoiling, everything else, go to orioncoolers.com, and I can guarantee you that you will be very, very pleased. The other group, most of you have heard about it, GoHunt.com. They have a program called The Insider. And when I come to these places and film these TV shows, I'm always traveling to units that maybe I've hunted before, maybe it's a different season, maybe it's whatever. GoHunt.com, their insider service, has become my go-to research tool. And right now they have a promo code called Randy, R-A-N-D-Y. If you go out to GoHunt.com and click on the sign up for the insider service and you use the promo code Randy, you're going to get a $50 Sportsman's Warehouse gift card. So if I was you, I mean, we're already in the middle of hunting season right now, but my mind's thinking about application season that starts in January, February, March. How much spare time have we talked about next year's applications?
Yeah, a lot.
Seems like every time we're sitting around, the three of us are like, hey, what do you know about this unit? Hey, what are the odds of that unit? So anyhow, if all of you are thinking the same thing, go to GoHunt.com and subscribe to their insider service and use the promo code Randy. And then the last, certainly not the least, is OnX Maps. You know that we use them. We know how well they work. Hopefully you'll figure out how well they work. Right here, we were hunting the boundary of a very big piece of land that I'm sure if we went there, someone would have came and paid us a visit.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll tell them you killed the bull, Tim. So we may as well tell them now, but you killed that bull maybe a mile from as the crow flies from that piece of land.
That's right. Yep.
And we were glassing some pretty nice bulls over there.
Some real nice bulls.
They all know where to be.
Yeah.
They knew exactly where to be.
But point is, without the OnX Maps, it'd be a crapshoot. And you'd have this hesitation of, well, is that bull where I can hunt, where I can't hunt? And, you know, we ran into that one piece of private the one day we were trying to get up the mountain.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that's like, is this someone just posting this road here to keep us out? But no, pull up the OnX Map. Dang, road goes right through a piece of private. And that's why Tyler saw so many elk up there that night when he was looking across from afar and talked us into thinking maybe we would climb up there. But I think I did a good enough job of faking a bad back or something that we kind of crossed that one off the list. But anyhow, OnX Maps, they now have the what they call the Hunt app. It's for your smartphone. And just in the last week, they've released the desktop application. So use promo code RANDY16, RANDY 16, and you're going to get 20% off their apps. And besides that, you're going to kill a lot more animals and you're going to kill bigger animals. And if you use their service and you somehow get a trespassing ticket, well, you're technologically challenged, I guess. So with that, like I said, Tim Lesser is with us. Tim is the VP of Product Development at Leupold. And when we decided we were going to come and film this hunt, Tyler does a lot of equipment abusing for Leupold, as do I. We thought this would be a good place to bring over some new stuff and see how it performs. And Tim, I don't want to put you on the spot here. I mean, we don't want to let any cats out of bags here that's going to get you in trouble, or your emails or phones are going to light up saying, when's that going to be available? Or how do I get some of that stuff to try out? But it sounds like this that are kind of fun. I mean, I didn't have a tag on this hunt, but it was fun to just play with some of those doodads you brought. Well, doodads is a pretty amateur term for the seriousness of what you brought with. But so anything you want to say you brought with that we were testing, you feel free to say it. But I know there's some secrecy involved here. So
yeah, there's a little bit of secrecy in there. That we're in the upfront, right? So trying to get something that's going to be worthy of what you're doing every day and what listeners are going to go put these through. We need to get people that are going to go abuse these things and knock them around early in the cycle. Yeah. So we bring them out. It's going to be 8-9 months before the things we were playing with will hit the market, because we need time take your feedback and actually get you a set. So we're going to do two cycles of that, right? You told me a little bit. We'll tweak it, and then we'll send them to you and let you knock them around for a few more months.
Yeah.
We'll hold off for now, just in case. But I think people are going to like it.
Tease.
I know.
I can't believe that I started down that path. And I guess, Tyler, we just can't talk about it.
I guess not.
We're under non-disclosure agreements. Are we under NDAs?
I think so.
Okay.
But it's that's not the important part.
Okay.
If it leaked out, it'd be okay. But what we don't like doing is you never know. Sometimes these things don't cut it.
Right.
And so then they never make it out there.
Yeah.
So if it's not going to cut it, get people excited or looking for something, and then it never actually surfaces.
Well, from what I've seen, I think we're well on your way of cutting it.
I think we're pretty close.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, it's funny, Tim. We had John and Eric, I call them the mad scientists from Sitka Gear, about how they develop new clothing products and high performance clothing and what goes into it and how far in advance they are in this product development cycle versus the marketing team or the sales team or the production team.
Yep.
And you're kind of in that same thing. You're probably thinking 2017, 18, 19.
That's exactly right.
And those guys they said there's times we come up with ideas in the lab, but we send them out in the field and it just isn't what we thought it would be.
Yeah.
And you want to know before it gets on a retailer shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. The guarantees are forever, so you need to be pretty darn sure before it ever gets out there. And
Leupold for life, is that what it is?
that is, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've got a great team there. We've got almost 100 engineers and almost 1,000 years combined experience, but we can't do what you do. We're running a business,
Right.
So we get it as good as we think we can, and then we turn it over, and you guys show us the weak spots.
Yeah.
So.
Or, Tyler he was showing me some of his homemade built stuff today that just on his backpack. So if there's an add-on or a feature that could be added to equipment, the odds are Tyler Johnerson has probably tried to build it himself.
Must have a lot of free time.
No, it's just, I think a lot of companies, and you guys especially, it's like good isn't good enough. How do we make good great?
Yep.
And hopefully Tyler and I can give you some feedback about how to do that.
That's what's exciting about working with companies like you. We get to kind of feel so involved and apply, the rigors of the day in, day out. Mm-hmm. And we know when we take it to the field, it's going to be, it's not going to fail. That's why I think Randy's, the people who sponsor his show, he's got the loyalty he only uses the best. And that's why I like to work with him, because he's not that guy, not that TV guy.
And I didn't pay Tyler any money to say that, but Tyler knows how much of a snob I am about things better work, because all right, some of you have heard me say I grew up in a logging family where cussing is an art form. Most of the time when Tyler gets to see one of those cussing fits is when there's a product failure. We're out trying something, or we're tweaking this or tweaking that, or some company sent me something new. Oh, hey, we heard about you. Will you try this? Okay, I'll try anything. Well, other than the butt out tool. Someone bought me a butt out tool as a prank, and I've never tried it.
They actually work great. I got one as a prank, and they work as advertised.
Really? Have you ever tried one?
Well, I haven't, but my brother, who has gutted like 3 animals in his life, used one, and it worked. So
it does work.
I let him do it, and I don't know. So
really,
that's how it went down with us too.
This isn't an advertisement for butt out.
No, it's not. But I was just saying that because it's kind of the running joke about in the TV world, you get sent equipment. Piles of stuff to the point where this spring I have a big 30 by 50 shop where people send me stuff and I try it once and it just didn't meet the standards. I had a come and get it sale, but you would almost, for it to be a sale, you have to pay for it, right?
You have to charge for it, yeah.
Right. So it was a come and get it event because no one had to pay for anything. Just get it out of my shop. because I got more stuff coming in. I need space. And so I'm not sure where I was going with that. Something about
testing the gear and making sure it works. And
maybe an equipment stop. That's right. I'm gonna, And I think most serious hunters, or not, maybe I shouldn't say it that way. Most hunters who hunt the kind of hunts that we do, that public land elk hunts are pretty demanding. You don't really care who makes it. You just want to know it works for your style of hunting. And if you took the whole spectrum of public land elk hunters, everyone's got a little different style. So they might say, oh, I want this type of whatever, I want that. But all I can tell people is, if you see us using it, we're using it because it works. So, and what worked this week was, well, we'll get to what worked, but we were dealing with post-rut elk, record high temperatures, public land, which means lots of hunters. People.
Yeah.
I mean, that one drainage, we
insane.
should have set up a coffee shop or a beer joint there.
Yeah. I think you'd have made a killing on a beer joint.
Yeah. No doubt.
I'm like, are there this many camp spaces in this drainage? But so we're dealing with that. We had a full moon. The wind on the calm days was what, 30?
Yeah, on the calm days.
Up at where we were at. How high were we? One time we were at 11.3.
Yep.
Most of the time.
Well, every night we were cleaning our nose and eyes out of the dirt. I mean, it was bad.
It was really bad with the wind. And so I'm trying to think, you guys, in your elk hunting, if I had to pick what is the hardest time to kill a public land bull elk, it would be post-rut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially the hot weather, and they're trying to go hide and get their feet under them and get healthy again and get ready for winter. It's tough.
Yeah. And then if there was a benefit of all the crowds this week, you knew where the elk weren't going to be.
Yep. Which was a lot of places.
And it didn't take long for us to figure out where we weren't going to be.
Yeah, we drove there that one afternoon, right?
Yeah.
We're like, nah, ain't doing this.
Yeah.
But when you think about post-rut elk, for me, and we've done this YouTube series about, I break it into 5 phases. Early season, which is usually, I'll say, any season that's open in August. Then I have pre-rut, which is usually, late September or late August, early September to maybe the 8th, 10th, 12th of September. It just, some places, sometimes the rut turns on different. Then I have peak rut, which is whatever date you want to use as a cutoff. Let's say September 10th is when the pre-rut ends. And it's not like it happens overnight, obviously. It's a bit of this transition. But through the end of September to probably October 5th, 6th, depending on where you're at, is what I call peak rut. And then after that, like October 10th and later to November 1st, I call that the post-rut, which is the terrible, hardest time to kill an elk, I think. And then
or at least a nice one,
Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
I would agree.
You can always find some elk if you're hunting hard, but to find a nice one is tough.
Right,
yeah,
a
mature one.
Bull elk on public land.
Yep.
Which that's like a completely different animal than what you see on a lot of TV shows or read about in a lot of magazines. And I don't mean this in any bad way, but there's a reason why the success rates for public land bull elk is so much lower.
Yeah.
It's a tough hunt.
Yeah, they behave differently.
Yeah, they respond to pressure. And so then I think for me, one of the easiest seasons to consistently find mature bull elk on public land is the late season, November 1st beyond. Because now those bulls are thinking about, sooner or later, depending on whether I might have to migrate, and they've got little sanctuary areas that are somewhere between their rutting grounds and their wintering grounds. And they're going to hold up in the highest, roughest, ugliest sanctuary they can find until weather or something pushes them closer to the wintering ground. At least that's the way I look at it and the way I break it out. But so we were here. Let's see. Today is October 18th. We're right in the middle of the post-rut, in my mind. Yeah, would we see some young raghorns, some...
Lots.
Yeah. And anytime we saw a group of cows, it might have a raghorn with it, a 2.5-year-old bull. A couple times we saw a 5-point or a 6-point. But
Small, yeah.
Real small.
Yeah.
Young 6s, I would say.
And if you want to see lots of elk in post-rut, go to where the food is, because that's where the cows are going to be.
Yeah, it's you find yourself when you're seeing all these elk, it's hard to go to those holes and those harder places because you just want to believe that one day, one morning, you're going to be sitting there and that big one's going to be there. But that is just not the case. We finally had to just block it out and move beyond all the elk that we could have killed and go dig deep down into where these bulls are going into sanctuary. They're off on their own. The bigger ones.
Yeah, I mean, the bull you shot, Tim, was all by itself.
He was. Yep.
Which is so classic of a post-rut bull, because they don't immediately go into their bachelor groups like you'll see in November and December. When they leave the cows, it's kind of like, I just want to go somewhere and survive.
They feel a lot like we do right now.
Well, and
They're wore out.
They're wore out. They're trying to go find somewhere.
Similar to like last year when Bruce shot his in this same unit. Granted, there was a few bulls in that bunch, but they have no fat on them whatsoever. I mean, they are full on. They've been licked. I mean, they're doing everything they can to, get some meat back on them and get ready for winter. And, that means they need some rest time.
All right.
Rest and groceries and water.
That's exactly it. And where you shot your bull, that bull was what, 400 yards from where he could have watered?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there was water close.
And he could feed right where he was bedding if he wanted to. Mm-hmm. And only a few fools are going to go into that spot and kill a bull elk. Of all the episodes we've ever done that shows a classic post-rut behavioral pattern, this episode is going to be it. It's going to show, all right, you want to go see elk, go over here where the feed is. Abundance of feed, because that's what the cows are looking for. Year-round, cows are looking for feed. They got a baby they got to carry through. They got a calf that they got to give birth to and get it to the next year. That requires food. Mm-hmm. So... And I get a lot of people who comment, well, how do you guys see so many elk? Well, first of all, we don't always see all the elk either. we spent a couple days proving that. But I think we kind of knew in that scouting day when we saw that really big 5x6.
Yep.
And he was in that junk hole, that place where all three of us kind of looked at each other like, you think we could find one in a better spot? That's what I don't know.
That was to my point. It's like we seen the most mature bull in this spot, and then we're off looking everywhere else all week, and we had to go back there, and then that's where we found Tim's bull, and it was not more than 1,000 yards, probably less than that.
Probably less than that.
Yeah, from where we saw that bull. So there's a reason why they're there, and we really didn't want to go down there until you dropped him.
Make sure he's dead before we're going to climb in there.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It is.
But I don't think it's coincidence that the three biggest bulls we saw. How many bulls do you think we saw in a day and a half of scouting? And
60 plus.
It's
easily 60 plus.
Easily. Oh. And the three mature bulls we saw were all in the same kind of spots.
And there really wasn't any betweeners. It was one class of younger bulls.
2.5.
And they were in the accessible places, maybe not for everyone, but anybody that just gets in there in the dark, goes to these feeding zones where you've got tons of cows and there's always some bulls there, but never these next level mature bulls. Right. They just weren't there. As bad as we wanted them to be there, they just weren't there.
We wanted them to be there very bad, because there's a common trait when Tim and Tyler are together for our TV show. It usually involves burned areas. And if you go and watch the mule deer hunt, that Tim shot a really nice mule deer, That was a big, ugly burn in Montana on public land. It usually involves some terrible weather extreme. I didn't see you wearing your Speedo on that Montana hunt, Tim.
No, I saved it for New Mexico.
You could have hunted in shorts this week for the majority of the day.
Yeah. You're moving it all.
Even at the elevation we were at, we'd get back to the truck at night, 61 degrees in the middle of October at 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
It's like, phew.
Oh, you'd start in the morning, an hour and a half before daylight at 54 or 55 degrees.
Yeah.
A couple mornings anyway.
Right. That's crazy. And then it also usually involves some terrible terrain to make the approach and even worse terrain to extract the animal.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, Tim. You might have wore out your welcome on this show because unless Tyler's willing to tag along, I'm getting too old for this stuff.
Well, I was thinking maybe we should do a moose hunt.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Well,
how many Sherpas are in the budget?
Yeah.
When I look at the places that we end up going with, you're blaming me, but I'm kind of looking back at you guys because I'm along for the ride here.
Yeah.
So moose hunt would likely kill me just getting to it, let alone the extraction. So
Yeah, well,
that was tongue in
if we're
cheek
gonna
for
do
sure.
a moose hunt, I'll just be the camp tender. I'll cook. I'll make sure you guys have coffee in the morning. I'll do all that stuff.
Yeah.
The places that you guys, when you're together, you kind of get this combination look like, yeah. But you got to understand, folks, if we're sitting here, if you could see the image of this, Tyler has no gray hair. Or if he does.
Whatever. My whole beard is gray.
No, just like 3 whiskers on the end of your chin.
Well, thank you.
Tim's kind of.
I don't even use
Tim's
product.
got the starts of a little bit.
Getting there.
And I'm like, my son calls me the silver tip. So the reason I say that is the
Distinguished
point
wisdom.
There you go. And that's the point I was getting to is these two guys both being very tall, lean, athletic, and me driving a desk for a living and being old and gray. So we're going to get to this decision because I think this decision, I don't know how well it's going to play out on TV. So we've been seeing, I don't know how many small bulls, but to the point where we almost were getting tired of seeing some of the same bulls. It's like, oh yeah, that's the bull you passed on yesterday, or wasn't that the bull that I could have shot 2 days ago? And so against my better judgment, these guys walk around the other side of the mountain looking into just terrible, ugly spot. And I stay over and I'm glassing on the nice side of the mountain. And personally, I'm thinking, oh man, I hope they don't see anything down there.
My injection here. Tim and I would have loved to have seen a nice bull over on the side of the hill you were glassing.
We were hoping
We
like
were
crazy.
hoping that you were going to come over and say, that 5x6 is right here.
Yeah.
But
So
I guess
all of a sudden, I hear this footsteps pounding down the trail behind me and a tap on the shoulder, and it's Tim saying, really big bull, nice bull. Just can't tell how big because he's in such a hole. And then he turns and runs away, which I think that was code word for Randy, get over here because we might be tempted to do something foolish. So I'm going to tell the version of the story how I saw it unfolding. You guys, you each tell your version too. Don't let me dominate here, but I get over there and they've got spotting scopes on supposedly a bull. I never got to see the thing. By the time I got over there, Tyler's like, oh, he just bedded. He just went out of view. And
I didn't think he had bedded necessarily. I just felt like he was looking to bed.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we were on him like a hawk till he just kind of melted into the cover.
If there can be such a thing as a burn that's a jungle, he found it.
He did.
Yeah.
I don't know how a burn can be as jungle-like as that was. It's thick and very briar patchy. Things just vanish in there.
Yeah, and it was amazing that the day before when we kind of glassed that, and I told you guys, boy, I hope we don't see a big one down there. How many elk just appeared out of nowhere down in there. You'd look at that place 5 times, and 10 minutes later, 6 elk stand up just where you were glassing. I don't know how they blend into those burns the way they do. But for those of you listening, if you listened to the podcast about 4 podcasts ago, and I already told the world about it once, and a lot of guys know about it, but I'm going to say it again, and people are going to be mad at me for saying it, but there is a website called the INCI Web, INCIWEB, and it will tell you every fire that public land agencies have had to deal with for years and years. So what do? As quick as we have a tag and I know we're going to be filming somewhere, I go to INCI Web and find out where the fires have been. And then some people have emailed me like, do you ever hunt in a place that doesn't have a burn? It just...
From what I'm seeing, why would you?
Yeah. It's...
Well, they got everything right there. They got the cover. They got the feed. You know, there's all the sanctuary without moving around and showing themselves.
Yeah. And sometimes the sanctuary might not even be the terrain. It's the blowdown, because 2 or 3 years after a fire, once the wind hits that, it's just flat out miserable walking through a burn. And so anyhow, now some people are going to email me and say, Newberg, shut your mouth. Not everybody needs to know about that website. But anyhow, I walk over there, and Tim had got back there also, and when we showed up, Tyler's like, just lost sight of him. So Tim takes his spotting scope over to the other side. He can't find him. Tyler can't find him. And I'm like, all right. They wouldn't come, you guys wouldn't come and get me if he wasn't really there, was what I was thinking. I mean, to this point, we've endured enough sun and wind and hiking that kind of the pranking or joking was pretty much, it was business.
Well, there was a lot of elk sightings by now. There was a lot of miles logged. There was a lot of early mornings.
A lot of elevation.
A lot of late evenings. A ton of elevation. And, you know, you just come to your wit's end of, we finally see a mature bull. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah. And so normally, anyone listening has done this. They've seen an animal bed, or they've lost sight of an animal, and they're sure where he's at. And they go over there, and he's not there. I mean, we've all done it. And so Tyler and I are having this discussion. Tim's looking to the left at Tyler, looking to the right at me, while we're going back and forth. I'm giving him all the reasons why we shouldn't do this. And Tyler is providing commentary about how there's some holes in my argument. And then I'm getting into all the reasons we should do it. And then it's like, Tim, what do you want to do?
Well, I noticed he didn't poke any holes in the reasons why we should do it. And, you know, after watching all of this, we did get a good look at the bull for the most part. We knew he was the biggest, most mature one we'd seen. And where he went in, we were 50% sure, just based on terrain, that he couldn't have gotten out of there without us seeing it. Yeah. But the behavior there at the end.
That's right. My instincts were, it's gambling. That kind of scenario is gambling.
It's probabilities.
And I felt like, personally, and that's why I was, you know, Randy and I off the record had a little discussion of, you know, I wouldn't be pushing if my gut wasn't yanking, you know, and his behavior, where he went, kind of where we'd seen the big bull before, the other big bull, it all was lining up that, you know what? We have 2 days of our hunt left. What are we going to do here? I mean, ultimately, it's your decision, but my gut was like, if this was gambling, I would have been all in.
Well, and I mean, to the other point, it was a bit of a hike to get where we needed to go.
It was ugly. It was uglier than we thought it was, because there was a gorge in there that we didn't find out till that night that could have swallowed 5 semis
at least.
So go ahead, Tim.
No, I just, you know, but that's now where we've seen the kind of the only mature bulls. We'd glassed one or two others from a long ways away that we couldn't easily get to. And it was the final thing in kind of in my mind was, we've looked at this, we've seen the same things relatively, repeatedly, and why not go give it a try? Go over there and look. That's where they like to be. And the big reason why not is because of the extraction, right?
When you look at extraction. And for me, this is just where TV plays into it. And fortunately, the audience doesn't have to deal with TV. But we kind of started down a certain path with the story. And we were seeing a decent number of elk. We were passing some elk. And we knew one of our counterpoint was, all right, if we go over there, this is a half day of the hunt gone. I mean,
the rest of the day.
Yeah. I mean, even if the bull wasn't there. Mm-hmm.
But let's just inject with TV. I did get footage of this bull.
I know, and that's right. So Tyler got footage from far away of this bull, and I trust Tyler's instincts when it comes to elk hunting more than anybody I hang out with. And some of you are going to say, well, wait a second, I think he's a cameraman. Well, if Tyler ever decided to do a public land elk hunting show, it would be the show you'd want to watch, because Tyler he just knows elk. So I'm sure Tim is thinking, are these guys going to start cussing at each other, or what's the deal here? Because I'm like this conservative guy. Tyler's a little more of a risk taker. And finally, I let my guard down and I said, Tim, what do you think? Because it's Tim's tag, his hunt. And so I want it to be what Tim wants to do. And secretly, there's a part of me that's like, I hope he really wants to go and do this. The conservative TV producer side of me was, this is such a huge risk for TV. I hope that he says, no, let's just wait till one of those, young 6 points comes out on the other side of the mountain and we can have him out of here in 5 or 6 hours. But so that's what was going through my mind.
Yeah, understandable.
Yep, and I'm kind of sitting there thinking, I think our best shot at a big bull is, even if the one that we saw isn't in there, they like that area.
And here's the thing too, it's a 5-day season.
Right.
I'd said it once, but we'd put a lot of miles in, tons of glassing time. We were hunting it right. We were doing everything right. And the limited amount of sightings on mature bulls, I mean, literally in my mind was 3.
Yep.
Potentially.
Yeah,
it was 3.
It was 3.
No.
1 from far away, 2 we could confirm. And then I'm going, okay, we've got today to go after this mature bull and tomorrow morning, and that's it, because we got to get it out. Right. And we got flights and I'm with Randy. We're trying to produce a TV show here, so we need to use that, second to last evening to maybe find a bull for TV,
right?
And put some meat in the freezer. And so this was it in my mind. And you know me, Randy, when we see a big bull, it's like, let's go kill the thing. Like, It's hard, but I'm not a TV host, so.
Yeah. Well, if you guys had seen him bed, I wouldn't have even blinked an eye. And I think as an accommodation to some of my worries, Tyler suggested, well, let's do this. To kind of cover our back door, Randy, you stay over here on this side of the mountain. Tim and I will circle the basin, and you'll see him if he leaves there. Now
because we had never moved the scope off of the last sighting, and we watched him for how many?
2 hours.
2 hours we watched him in the thick jungle, over and over, bits and pieces. Yep, that's him. And then when we lost him, that scope never moved the rest of the day.
Right. Yeah, and so that logic was pretty good for me. Mm-hmm. I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's right. That's how we should do it. And I mean, quite lazily, I didn't have to go on that big long hike across that side hill, across that burn. I got the easy job. I was just there to kind of run interference and give you hand signals if something went south on us. So
Well, it's a huge piece of mind when you do that, because I've done it a few times, and usually it doesn't work out unless you just have that instinct. But if you saw it slip into a fold somewhere, you assume it bedded, but you don't know.
And as I don't know if we've said it, but watching this bull for 2 hours, it's like he was on a mission. I watched him.
Yeah, he came across
the trail of a bunch of cows, and he really rooted it, like almost like he was looking for that second cycle calf. But he also was not liking the sun, so he was on the move, hit that trail of cows, sniffed the ground hard. We watched him do it. No hot cow, boom, zipped into that bedding zone, and we followed him for probably another 30 minutes at least in there, and then he started to do what bulls do. Right. He did the zig, he did the zag, he slows way down, he's spinning circles, he's eating a little bit, he's gonna bed.
Right.
And then we lost
the
sight.
time of day, everything. I mean, I did actually see him, because when you first came and got me, Tim, the one time, no, before I went around the other side of the mountain, he was way across over there, 2 or 3 miles away.
Yeah.
And he was lining out then. And I said, you guys got an eye on him. I'll go to the other side of the mountain. So even at that time, he was covering ground.
He was. And that's a combination, I think, of he got caught out where he didn't want to be, and the sun's coming up, and he's a big bull. And so he's losing elevation, and he's really making ground. Like he's trying to get to that thick jungle. And he did go into the jungle.
He did. And he was coming from the area where all the pressure is. So somebody might have kicked him out, and he had to get up and over, bumped through.
Right.
And he found himself covering ground in the daylight, and he didn't want to. So it makes sense when you finally find another spot where he can escape and be safe. Or so he thought, that you'll stay, at least during the daylight hours.
Yeah, and Tyler brings up a good point, and this just comes with experience, I think, because I had no idea until I hunted elk for 25 years that you can read the behavior of the animal if you really start paying attention. Like you were just talking, Tyler, about how he was doing his little milling around, nibbling here, nibbling there, which when a bull gets ready to bed, he's kind of just, all of his travel is within probably less than an acre. And then all of a sudden he just disappears. And that's usually his bed for a good portion of the day, if not all day. And so when you told me, all right, this is what he was doing before we lost sight of him, you kept building the case like you were an attorney.
I was. Yeah. He was a hunting attorney.
Yeah. Tyler was prosecuting the case of why they should go over here and take this, what I saw to be a pretty big risk. So
that's our feng shui, our yin yang.
And so what happens next, these guys are going to have to tell the story, because the decision was made that I would stay there with the binos and spotters and make sure he didn't leave that spot.
And the bull was 1 mile?
1.1 miles by the GPS, as the crow flies.
As the crow fly. Yeah, it's farther. Yeah. I'll tell you from experience.
And so from where I was sitting, if he would have popped out of there, I would have seen him, unless he would have went straight down. That's the only way I wouldn't have seen him. And so the idea was that I'd run up and down the ridge and act like an idiot if he left, so you guys would know, hey, time to come back. And we'd worked out all the hand signals and everything else. And Tim thought I was serious. If I put my arms in a loop up above my head, that means bullseye. Start shooting.
Well, what I was laughing about was, if you were running back and forth to tell us you left, you couldn't use your binoculars, so you wouldn't know if we were looking at you. I was just wondering how long you'd run back and forth before we caught it, because it was a long ways over there.
So I was thoroughly distracted at that time. I never even thought about that till you just said it now.
Well,
no, it would have worked. It would have worked, but you might have been over there with your tongue hanging out like, geez, please turn around and look at us for a second here. Just look back.
I think Tim and I's confession here is we weren't thinking like that. We were booking it. We were trying to get over there as fast as possible, because we didn't leave until 11 in the morning, when my gut's like, we need to leave at 9. Like, we need to leave now.
But as warm as it is, he's going to want to get up and shuffle.
Possibly.
But with watching him that extra 2 hours and he didn't do the move, because we'd seen him move before about then, he had his spot. It obviously was shaded enough.
That was the extra little bit
know.
of insurance that I
Yeah.
wanted to bail right at 9. You know,
Right.
No, I agree.
It looked like we should
Hindsight, I
have, but by
agree.
the time he hadn't wiggled at 11, in the times we'd seen elk get up and move, it was the next thing in my mind that was going to make him move, not necessarily leave the country, but make him move.
Yeah,
was the sun
mid-afternoon.
angle.
Yeah.
Once the sun started hitting him, he might get
Yeah.
up and shift positions in that same little area.
Right.
But by waiting until 11, it gave us less time to get over there. But I felt like we were getting a little bit of insurance that he was kind of anchored for a while.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is, you know, and we're going through this whole story, folks, because I feel this is such a classic public land example of how you have to hunt a mature bull sometimes when the conditions are tough. Full moon. I mean, the one night we didn't even need a headlamp walking in, or the one morning. I mean, it was so bright. It was like crazy. So you throw all that in there, and these were really tough conditions. And this is why I want to go through this step by step, because some pretty experienced elk hunters are maybe overanalyzing this situation. And hopefully by talking about it, the listener is like, oh yeah, I've been there, or oh, I never thought about that. So that's why I'm getting into that depth. And Tim makes a good point, is when the sun moves, a lot of times a bull will move. But my experience is if he's found a sanctuary place, when he gets up and moves, he's only going to move maybe 100 yards at most before he finds that next little cut or crevice or whatever gives him shade, because they get to that age, they know that being out in the daylight is how Pete got shot last year.
It's a bad move.
Well, and they know those beds too. I mean, we saw them. They're so historical.
That's an
He'd probably
established
lived
bed.
in that same bed many times. I mean, those beds are there and they look like that because they've worked, and that's what,
Over and over and over. That was-
and over and over.
That
So,
bed has, I mean, it was very, it's not like a place where the grass is mashed down. Oh, some elk have bedded here while they were coming through. That was a
no,
bed.
it was a dirt spot that's reeked like you couldn't buy the Bull Whiz and the it wouldn't have smelled like that. It was bad.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing you point out, Tyler, is that in sanctuary places, both in the post-rut and late season, elk use them year after year after year. So don't tell your buddies where you found a sanctuary place, because he's going to bring his buddy, who's going to bring his brother-in-law, who's going to bring his cousin, and pretty soon it's not going to be a sanctuary
And pretty
anymore.
soon the grass is growing in the bed.
Yep. The grass recovers because nothing's getting rid of it.
So anyhow, we made the decision that you guys were going to go over there. And I told you guys today as we were packing elk meat out of that canyon that if you would have let me bet $100 whether or not you were going to locate that bull in that ugly jungle, and the fact that you guys were going to be way above him on that cliff, I would have taken your bet. I would have thought this is easy money, because so many times I've went and looked where something disappeared, and you get over there and it looks completely different.
Yep.
What in your mind's eye is, oh, it's like this, it's like that. But we were on our smartphones with our Onyx maps, with Google Earth. I mean, we had aerials. We thought it through pretty well.
And a good time to say this, and it's a motto I've lived by forever: positive thinking brings positive results. And if we created it in our mind that we're gonna do this. This bull is here. Like the chips are stacked. Let's do this. And we could have got over there and not found them. I mean, but you know what? If we wasn't thinking positive, we probably wouldn't have walked over there.
Right. So you guys, I could probably leave the podcast now for a half hour, because all I did was lay over there and get a hell of a windburn and a sunburn. Because I don't know how it was where you guys were, but that mountain I stayed on there to keep an eye on things, the wind was blowing at least 40 miles an hour easy. Not a cloud in the sky, 10,500 feet. I'm like, get done with this, guys, because I'm frying out here. But that sounds like kind of a wussy thing when I think about the terrain you guys were negotiating to get over there. So with that, I don't care. Both of you guys, one of you guys can talk about the what happened, because I think the details you guys told me last night, there's a lot of really good details in that about how you go and hunt a specific bull.
Well, I guess backing up, the plan was there was all these stringers of dead timber, and our view of it and what the reality of is, you're guessing because we can't see behind it. So we don't know the expanse between the stringers, but we could tell there was chutes. We had 1, 2, and 3 labeled, like for reference as we're talking this scenario out. And then all above that is a cathedral of cliffs. I mean, these big, huge cliff bands coming off. And I'm thinking to myself, and this is what my gut had told me early, as Randy mentioned about our banter back and forth, was I think if we just get over there on that one long nose, that cliff, he's laying in the stringer below that, we'll find him, we'll shoot him. And, easier said than done, but, the picture of it is it's a hole underneath a huge boxed-in canyon of cliffs.
Right up at the head of the canyon. So it's like a light bulb in there.
And in order to negotiate our way over to there, we had a elk trail that was cut across the hill, and we learned why in the dark coming out.
On the way out.
But going in, we were aimed for it, and it rolled us into a saddle, which put us on the back of the mountain. And then we had to make about another 500-600 yard
once
move
we were at elevation,
once we got over that ridge to get into this quote unquote sniper position that we felt we could find this bull in. And just that easy, right? Just that easy. So we away we went, and the hillside is not only is it a dead burn, it is like walking on doggone bowling balls the entire way. It is all rock.
Yeah. Well, blow down all over
rock,
bowling balls,
and extremely steep. I mean,
extremely steep.
And there's washes. So on our way over, the washes we were hitting were negotiable. Like we could get through them, but some of them were 6-8 feet deep.
We went high early.
Because we went high early. Because we wanted to keep our scent all up out of that basin. Because there's other elk in there, and so we thought, this is, thinking positive. When we kill this bull, we're going to hike it back out to this saddle. We're going to grade ourselves out, and it'll be no problem. Well, it posed quite the problem in the evening.
Later it became a big
later
problem.
that night, but nonetheless,
Well, so we slip over the backside, which was, quite frankly, we're headed almost directly upwind of the bull.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the only thing, you look at that, and I mean, that was a big part of the discussion. So you're going to circle around directly upwind of a bull that may or may not be where you last saw him 4 hours ago.
But,
how can this go wrong?
From experience, because I've applied it and it has worked, and that's where I'm like the chips thing. I've had the wind at my back blowing right at the elk at 300 yards, but I'm so high above them, it's blowing right over them. They just don't smell you.
It's steep enough there.
It's steep enough that they're not smelling you. And the wind's not, it's hot out.
Right.
It's hot. It's not cold.
Right.
So things aren't settling. And
And there is an upwind thermal coming out of the canyon, even if on top of the ridge, there's a prevailing wind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once we drop in there, I mean, you could look at it and predict that it would work. With 40 mile an hour wind, it works a lot better than 4.
Yeah, breaking your scent particle and
But so we slip around there and come back over right even with that cliff.
Yeah, we hit everything right. We hit that elk trail. We hit that saddle perfect. We came right into that cliff nose. I mean, everything was just coming right together. And now it's like, and it was kind of it was a 4-point climb out there on the cliff. Like it wasn't you just walked out on it. I mean, we had to
we needed to lock the hubs a few times.
We had to pick our way out, and it's sheer drop on both sides. And it's like, part of me is like, man, this is sketchy. And then I'm like, this is so cool. Like we were going to be right on top of this thing. And gosh, we got out there and posted up and
skyline. So you want to minimize movement.
Mm-hmm. So we were trying to be very cautious of that. And then you look over the edge and it's literally a burnt jungle. Like,
and you're above
there's
it.
no there's no pockets. It's all this white or
and black.
grayish
Yeah.
and black with shadows casting through it and rock everywhere. So the contrasts are
And tan grass, the same
so
color as an elk.
difficult. Yeah. But where we last had the sighting in the spotting scope, I just started burning the binoculars in there as hard as I could. And I thought I seen what I thought was a bull, or thought it was him. And we got the scope, and I bet you it took me another 5 minutes to find that spot with the spotting scope.
Knowing where he was, where
it
you'd
was
seen
that
it.
difficult.
And we're 400 yards away.
Yeah,
line of sight.
400 yards. What your angle was?
Yeah, that was a 35 degree angle, which doesn't sound like a ton until you're up there trying to figure out how to shoot down at that angle.
But one of the craziest things for me was, so we get the spotter out and we work again to try to find him, and we do, and yes, it's him because he had the tip down G1 on the one side, and it wasn't, minute by minute the shadow casting was changing so much that we would lose him.
Even though he wasn't moving.
Even though he was dead still.
He was asleep. He had leaned over on his left antler and was sound asleep.
Really?
Yeah.
Head on the ground.
Head on the ground.
So here we are, and we're trying to film this as a show. We're excited that we've got him sighted, but we also realize it doesn't take nothing for this bull to get up, walk a few steps, and we'll never see him again. Yeah. So the urgency of getting Tim set up, getting the camera set up, and I'll tell you, I've filmed for a long time, and I take a lot of pride in making sure to get the shot and having an eye in the camera in the heat of the moment and getting it. It took me 15 minutes to find him in the camera.
Really? Because of the shadows.
Just the shadows, and you don't have a good view in the viewfinder.
Plus, you're looking down slope, not across the slope.
Right.
I mean, and a lot of people are maybe listening to this, but you guys are looking down a very steep slope, which is your point of reference, and your ability to see in there is almost zero.
Right.
Any little bit of brush, any grass.
We literally moved. So this point had maybe 15 feet across, and then it kind of nosed right out to about 4 feet.
And it was probably a 50-foot drop.
We pushed ourselves as far as we could,
60.
lookers left or walkers left to the tip, just to buy us the window that we felt could give us our shot. If we would have been in the middle or to the right side, and trust me, we checked every
everywhere.
angle we could. Yeah. The best one was on that far left edge, and we had to lift like a 150-pound boulder out of the way.
It was a big rock. We're doing some construction while you're in there. Maybe it's more like destruction, But it was the only way to do it. And so, and I was shooting standing and prone at the same time.
And with that, so I've got the one tripod. I got the camera set up. Finally, I've got the bull found. I lock it off on the bull so that no matter what, if something starts to happen quickly, I can just push in and I know I've got him. Because tracking the bull in that timber is so difficult. I mean, I'm sure the listener can kind of get an idea that it's hard enough to find him in a spotting scope, let alone a video camera. But also, we took the Leupold spotter that we had without the tripod now, because I don't want to take the camera off the tripod to be diddle farting around with that. And we propped it up on a rock and actually got it to watch the bull with the camera locked on the bull, with Tim in position with the rifle. And Tim's so leg falling asleep and neck kinking, I would watch through the spotter and give him time to rest. And then he would get back in the scope and I'd go back to the camera. And we did this for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it seemed like it took forever. I wasn't sure what you guys were doing over there. I'm looking in the spotter. I'm like, all right, I don't know if these guys are just jerking my chain or what the hell's going on over there. And then about an hour into it, I see Tyler trucking football-sized rocks off the cliff.
Well, we could hear people coming into the basin.
Yeah, another thing. From my position, 7 Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts come hustling by me.
Public land.
And I'm thinking, all right, they're going to stay on the trail because there's a trail down below us, and they're going to just hike up to the divide and Nope. They bushwhacked across that hillside, and I could hear the one Boy Scout yelling at the guy in the lead, "Are you sure this is a shortcut?"
And I can guarantee you it was not a shortcut.
Yeah. And they're heading right for you guys. So I'm like, oh no, don't tell me they've went and done all this. And a troop of Boy Scouts or Eagle Scouts is going to mess this up.
And the thought Tim and I had is, okay, human voices. I have no idea what is going on, or even it's not even
We
a
can't
time
even
to
find
think.
them.
Right, because they're over this little knob behind you guys.
For a while, I thought I was imagining. It's like, what am I literally? Am I hearing voices right now?
Yeah.
We're kind of looking with the wind and.
You know what? Let's do a little, a little something natural that could get him. So I'm thinking, I'll create a little rock slide. So I start chucking rocks off the top of this thing, and the bull did whip his head around, but
He didn't want to go anywhere.
He was
That's
still
amazing.
locked into his bed. He whipped and he listened and he cupped the ear. And then after I threw 2 rocks, I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't, it's not natural once you start throwing rocks like that.
We wanted him to stand up, not run away.
And we don't want him to get too nervous. So we cut it off, and we decided if there really were people, which I couldn't believe it. I thought I was hearing something, because we're ways in there in a nasty, nasty spot.
Right.
Well,
And,
Randy had to go and tell him that it was Boy Scouts. We just tried to make it sound like this was really hard to get to. And it really was, folks. It honestly was. So it caught us very...
These were not Boy Scouts. These were, early 20 or late teen type people.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
No, it
was
wasn't.
definitely inaccessible. So we couldn't believe we were hearing voices. We thought maybe the altitude was getting to us.
So then we just go back to the, you know what? Let's just let the sun and the natural whatever he wants to do it, because our shooting hole. Well, Tim, you were staring through it with the scope, so as a shooter with your sight picture, you can probably explain it better. But I know what I was seeing in the spotter. It was tight, and it's 400 yards. And it's not even a shot in the bed. We had a shot at the back of his head, and we had a shot at his gut, just in front of the hind quarter.
Which shot him in the right hip.
Neither one's a good shot.
Right hip or back of the skull at 400 on a windy day.
Yeah.
So neither of those are appealing. And the branches are crisscrossed across everything that is where you'd want to put a bullet.
And we're assessing shadows. Like, okay, is that stick 3 feet from his body or 15 feet from his, we don't know exactly where he's going to stand up in our shooting window. We just know when he does, you're going to have to make something happen. And, we've talked about the grain of the bullet, and, it was the same rifle that Bruce used the year before.
Yep.
We killed that bull at 402 yards. And I'm telling you what, as Randy says, it pole-waxed him.
Pole-waxed him for sure. So just real quickly, because people are going to email me and ask, you were shooting a 338 Win.
Yeah, 338 Win Mag. It's that Howa.
Yeah.
And I was using the 250 grain AccuBonds.
Right, the Nosler factory load AccuBonds. And what scope did you put is on that? A VX6?
It's a VX6 3 to 18.
Okay.
And so that was actually really helpful in this, because you can back down if something happens. But it's hard to say until you're looking at it. But we needed to look and see, can we thread a needle and make this shot happen?
Right.
And on 18 at 400 yards, I could almost see his pulse.
Yeah.
So you could really get in there and dial it and look. And that's ultimately what made us decide not to take the shot in the bed, because we could take and look and see the branches that were crossing. If you backtracked them to the trunk that they were attached to, and then went down and looked, it was about 60 yards up the hill of the bull.
Yeah, so
and it looked like they were 3 feet from the bull because of the angle and so many branches. So that's a definite no-go, at that point. So
and that'll elevate the pulse in itself, that you're going to have one chance. Your shooting hole was probably 24 inches,
Yeah.
which is pretty good size hole, because you don't want to miss more than 10 inch,
Yeah.
But still, you don't know what angle he's going to stand up, and so the anticipation of 2.5 hours of this leapfrogging between camera, spotter, you're in your scope, then you're trying to rest your leg that's asleep or your neck that's kinked, and I'm back in the spotter, and it's not a comfortable position I was in either. I was kinking out around where we had the spotter braced up on this rock. I had to like wedge myself between two rocks and cock my head sideways just to see around your shoulder,
just to see through
and
there,
keep assessing the situation. And there's a lot of pre-roll, because every time I'd see the bull kind of move his head or do something cool where the light was right, I'd roll, because it's so hard to see that I'm like, how is the viewer, like, this is going to be cheesy if I just film him just static.
Just looks like there's a forest down there.
Anything.
Right.
But when he'd move his rack in the sun and stuff, it's like, ooh, you could really see it. And then that gets us going too. We're like, is he going to stand up? Tim, get ready. And
because there wasn't, if he took more than a few steps in any direction, without seeing the shooting position, I'm standing, the bull's directly to my left, to my 9 o'clock, and I'm standing on the side of a hill where if my left foot gives out, I go down 40, 50 feet.
Really?
Vertical.
It was that bad on that other side.
Pure vertical
from
drop
my
off.
angle, I couldn't see that.
Pure drop. I'm on one little grass clump that's sticking out of the side of this.
He could have grabbed a tree.
If it started to go, I could have grabbed and hung on. But the problem is, I'm standing straight up, but I'm shooting directly to my left.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm standing up, and then I need to lay over, so my upper body is
you're
prone.
right-handed.
And I'm right-handed.
And we had his pack, which we had to pull Phil out, put Phil in, get the gun. Then we had to put 3 rocks and then put my pack on top of the rocks to get the chest elevated. I mean, it was a goat rope.
To get the muzzle low enough in the back. Right. So then we're standing
all on a tiny little cliff tip that had sheer drop-offs on both sides.
So I just wanted to add that for his foot fell asleep, poor Tim. When you lose feeling in the only anchor point keeping you from going 40 feet off a rock face, occasionally you want to adjust slightly. And then Tyler's, it was a neat thing. I'm glad the microphones weren't running the entire time.
Yeah.
There were some choice words.
I ran the microphone on me a little bit. It was so windy. I don't know if any of my footage, but I was doing my best Howard Cosell play-by-play. Well, the younger folks in the audience might not know Howard Cosell, so I'm trying to think who I should give as my... Anyhow, I was doing play-by-play over there with the other camera. The wind might have ruined it all, but the thing the audience may not know is that in TV, our production guidelines are that you can't shoot an animal in its bed. I'm not quite sure where that comes from, but it's in the production guidelines. Tyler's aware of it, and I'm thinking, all right, Tyler is telling Tim, don't shoot until he stands, because...
I've broke protocol many times. Okay. I was not thinking that.
And so we had this signal of me standing there making this big bullseye, which meant shoot. So every time I thought they'd looked my way in the binoculars, I'd run out in the open and I'd give them this big shoot sign. Like, I don't care if he's bedded. I'll tell the network we're airing that thing anyhow. But I was just guessing what you guys were up against. I had no idea.
We did see that. We did get the message, but there was the branches were right on the vitals, and we were trying to think. We had the conversation probably 6-7 times.
I was going to say a half a dozen times. I'm like, I think you could almost thread it in there, and then it's like, if you're 3 inches off, you're going to deflect. No, don't do it.
400 yards.
Don't do it
with an unknown wind, because where we're laying, we're just over the crest of the hill and out on this face, dead calm.
Really?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to read mirage between and see if there's leaves blowing through or spider webs, some of those things that you see shining in the sun. We can't read the wind. So trying to pick a spot, at 400 yards, it's like if I'm steady enough, if the bullet goes exactly where the crosshair is, we can do this.
Right.
But there's a lot of physics going on there that are not going to put it right where the crosshairs are.
So I guess moving to the point of truth, all this time when the bull's moving and the light gets good, I'm rolling camera and I'm pushed in on the bull. Then I jump back into the spotting scope to help spot the shot. And, there's a lot going on there. And when the bull finally decides to stand up, I had the camera pushed in. So
tell the audience what you mean by pushed in.
So I have it full zoom, bracketed right on the bedded bull.
Right.
Meaning... it's go time.
All they're going to see is a bunch of fur.
Well, what they're going to see is, he's there because we have a lot of pre-roll. There's going to be a lot of horn flashing through there and get you all excited, but you really can't see a lot. You can just tell that there he is. But when he stands up and fills that 24-inch hole and the camera's already pushed in, it's like, whoa, there he is.
Like, that's how it felt in the scope too.
And it's like, and I don't know if I got you a little, but I'm like, Tim, he's standing up, like,
I remember it wasn't he's standing up. He goes, here we go. Are you gonna shoot? Here we go. He's up. Are you ready?
Yeah. Oh. And finally, we didn't know if it would ever happen, but
there he
busted one down there, and then just as fast as he stood up, he's out of the picture. And I grabbed the binoculars because the camera, I can't see anything. I can't see anything anyways.
That viewfinder, it's hard to find.
I grabbed the binos and I'm looking, and all I can see is him going down through that thick jungle, and I'm getting bits and pieces, and I feel like his tail end was losing control. But I'm just seeing pieces. I can't see a lot, and then he's gone. And we look at each other like,
this is not good.
What just happened?
Everything felt right. Did you see? No. Did you see? Oh, no.
So my gut was he was
trying
hit.
not to fall off the cliff when I ran the bolt. And,
my gut was he was hit, but the way he left the camera screen, or just what I could see, I didn't know.
Right.
I just knew that once you threw the binoculars up and the way he was going, he wasn't going like a freight train he had a little bit of loose back end on him, and typically that's indicative of you hit him hard. And but he was out of sight, and so we spent 15-20 minutes on the rock using the spotter.
Like 3 hours.
Yeah,
it felt like 3 hours to me too.
Okay, they're not high-fiving, they're not congratulating, but I didn't see a bull run out of there. Mm-hmm. What the hell's going on over there?
And finally, we decide, after gridding that thing with the spotter and glassing, and just, we got to go down there and see if there's blood or what's going on. I mean, there's just no other way around it. We gave it enough time that I think if he wasn't hit hard, we would have had a likelihood of seeing something exiting, because once it got down further, and that was another reason why the confidence to me was he's there. Once you get down a little further, it opened up to where it wasn't where they would bed. It would have given us a little bit of a...
We should have seen a flash.
We should have seen something going out, and so
everything felt good. When the shot, but there's just so many branches. There's so many little. It looks like it's a big clear window, but you've always got that shadow of a doubt where did it catch something. Matter of fact, there was a branch probably 25 yards in front of us,
and it was a big concern. Like, I'm like,
that was
Tim,
right
you got to watch that, and a lot of times too is your focus, especially a lot of times with bow hunting is where I really struggle with it, but your focus is on the target, and you don't focus on the foreground. And that creates a lot of problems in hunting, because you get so tunnel vision, you're not processing. But we'd had enough time. Yep. We'd talked it out enough. I knew it was open. And as long as you didn't hit that one at 25, 30 yards in front of you, that bullet should have flown true right into that zone. And, it took us, we had to climb down off the cliff, and that took a bit. It was steep.
Well, and it took a little while I'm peg legging it down there. Like, hold on. I can only feel half of my lower body right now. And Tyler's like a cat running around in those hills, and says, well, the rifle's back here. If he's not done and down, it's going to be a bit. I'm trailing behind you here.
Well, and I was a little ahead, but my biggest thing was I wanted to get to his bed, because I had it marked. Changed. Yeah, because the sun and from his bed, I knew where I'd last seen his, that tail end getting loose and out of sight. And I wanted to just do my thing in my mind by myself and figure it out. And so I wasn't going anywhere without you. I wanted to go to that bed and figure it out. And, it's a lot. You get down in there where he was laying, and it seems kind of open, and, not open, but it's like, oh, this isn't super thick. And
when you look across
you put
the ground,
400 yards and a huge burn in your way, and it's really thick. And then the brush and the blowdown and the rocks, and these aren't excuses. It's just reality of where they go and hide.
Just go back to that bed and look back up to where you were and see what little bit of gaps and windows exist between there and where you guys were positioned.
Yep. So I'll leave it to Tim to when we got to that bed, we
get in there, and you're headed down, and we get in there, and there's a little bit of a breeze, not much, and it was actually blowing the opposite direction. It's coming over the top of the hill and circling like a back eddy in a river, right where a fish would lay behind a rock. And boy, you can smell elk heavy. You can smell bull, right? And it's like, I know he's in here or the bed's in here, and you get there, and it's grass and dust and other stuff in there, but then there is a definite ancient bed. I mean, they've been using this thing forever. And I'm thinking, I'm just smelling that bed. Well, the two were lined up. The dead bull down in about 20 yards away from the bed, and the bed were right. I'm thinking, man, that's a strong smelling bed. What was he doing in there? Trying to wallow while he was resting? But
before you get to the next point, when there are a lot of people who don't understand how easily you can smell elk. I'll be archery hunting, and I'll just turn to the camera and tap my nose, because my nose is way better than my ears. But really, elk hunting can be very much a smell game at times.
And there's a difference when you smell enough of them. There's a difference between the bull and the cow.
Right.
Yeah. The muskiness, and he's been peeing on himself for a month and a half, and wallowing and.
And I just interjected that because there's a lot of audience who live in places where they don't get to hunt elk, and I just want them to understand that you really can smell an elk from a long
ways away in beds. And that's, as we're coming through there, as I'm catching up to Tyler, I'm smelling a bull, and I'm thinking, great, awesome. Yeah. And then he points at the bed, and I look, and it's a really established bed, and I went from excited to, oh man, that's what I was smelling. and then
it was just over the crown.
Tyler was just a few steps ahead of me, and I'm kind of turning, and I'm actually trying to start hunting using my nose. Right? Mm-hmm. And in there, the wind's swirling a little bit, and it's like, well, if I can smell it, and I step past the bed, and I can still smell it, and say, well, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Because I'm upwind of it now. And eagle eye over here, I'm walking, trying to use my nose and looking, and he's just standing there, and he goes, hey. It's like, yeah? He goes, why don't you just look over there instead? And there's the bull down, and things got a little weird. I might have hugged another grown man, but it's okay.
Film.
Yeah, it wasn't recorded, so now it can just be, potentially that happened.
I mean, there's plenty of events where it's okay to hug another grown man. I mean, shooting a really nice bull elk after a badass stock like that is one of them for sure. That's probably, of the allowed male hugging events, that's probably right up there towards the top.
I thought so.
It's all the raw emotion.
The emotion comes out because it was, is he going to be over there? Then there was the physical aspect of trying to get over there quickly before we just turn around and see you running around on the hillside and go, man, if we'd have been here sooner.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then to just
one thing I got to say is, of all the guys I know, or the big bulls that I've killed, if you worry about how you're going to get them out, you're not going to kill them.
That's right.
So when you just focus on the task at hand and you get it done, that's when you're flooded with the worry of getting them out. But now you have to do it. And when you've done it over and over and over, you can do it. And it was kind of to Randy's point earlier about, hard mountain hunting, all hunting, but really mountain, like elk hunting, is kind of that upper echelon of effort, in my opinion. And I've hunted lots of sheep and goats, and I'm lion hunter and on. But elk hunting really tests your mettle, both mentally and physically. And I just find that when you want to kill a big bull, or the people I know that kill big bulls, I think if they're flooded with that how and what if, and you don't have a consistent success at killing these big bulls. And so this is where I'm circling back. We see the bull, it's dead, we're hugging. It's like, okay, now reality is now.
Yeah.
Let's get this thing out of here. And how was that going to happen? And we had a plan.
Right.
But that's where things get interesting.
Until you get hit, right? Everybody has a plan until you get hit.
Yeah. No, it was funny when you guys left, and I think we said something of, well, I said, if you kill them, just come out light and we'll figure out a way to get it out tomorrow. And Tyler's like, no, when we kill them.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's another thing, too, to the listener is when you're elk hunting, take a good backpack in and bring something out because they are not little.
Right.
And you've got
When you don't want to go back to the truck to get your backpack.
Unless you got horses lined up, which we did not.
Yeah.
You bring out every trip you make count, and that's why fanny packs are for the shopping mall.
Right.
Like you carry a backpack that you can carry a big load in, and you use your every step wisely.
Right. And I've said it many times, and I got a little bit of grief when I said it on one podcast, was that when I see a guy walking around with a fanny pack, he doesn't plan to kill anything that day. That's what goes through my mind. I'm not saying that's necessarily true, but that's what goes through my mind.
Yep.
And to your point, Tyler, all three of us had the same backpack.
Yep.
We all had Mystery Ranch calves,
Yep.
Mystery Ranch packs with Metcalf bags on them, because we can fold them down super, super flat as day packs. We can carry more junk than our bodies want to hold, just while we're hunting.
And then they got the load sling on them.
Right.
So.
And we can break them open and dump a lot of weight in there and haul it back. As comfortable as the terrain allows.
Yeah. The the pack isn't the problem.
Right. It's the body that.
Yeah.
So we put the bull down at what, 230, 220, 230?
Yeah, I think he got up to adjust from the sun.
Probably by the time we got to him, it was 315 with.
Sounds about right.
So after photos and video and, all that stuff that takes all the time, broke him down, and we got everything whittled off right down to the skull, caped him.
Hung the quarters.
And then we loaded up Tim with the head, and then I took the back straps, tenderloins, and neck meat, or at least half the neck meat, and packed up, and that was going to be our first load out, because we figured the next day, boned meat, 3 guys, we got it.
Yeah.
We were really assessing kind of how we're going to do this, and our plan was from where the kill spot, we had 800 feet of elevation difference to hit that saddle.
Right.
But we had to negotiate 4 big stringer finger ridges, not big, but and
coming off those cliffs,
it felt pretty big. It felt pretty big.
They look like pretty big ridges maybe not in terms of elevation, but just to negotiate around them with the blown down timber.
Right.
From my angle, it looked like pretty good.
I can tell you this part. I felt good about, this is good. This is not going to be hard. We are 1.1 miles from Randy. We've probably got 2 more miles beyond that, which would be trail miles,
right?
Which
downhill.
is like doggone cupcake,
right,
compared to this, because you're walking on extremely steep side hill with bowling ball rocks, and then we'd hit these. I don't know what kind of brush that was, but
I took a picture of it. Are you talking about those little aspens?
That dry? No, not that. I was going to get to that, but then there's all these like bushy, dry. It wasn't prickly. There was some thorn stuff in there, but you're trying to follow trails through it, and it's obscuring your vision. It's getting dark, but we hit the bottom of these chutes, and everything's going great. And then we get into this sucker patch of aspens, which covered this mountainside, and poor Tim has the rack on his back, and he's just, I've done it before, so I felt for you. I don't care if I had more weight or it was easier going for me, because I'm not getting caught up in it. And it's super steep side hill, so the beam, which was 52 inches, is grabbing the ground on the one side.
On the uphill side.
Yeah, and Tim's getting a super hot spot on his foot from the downhill foot. And I'm like, find a trail, Tyler, find a trail. And, I did, but we get about 2/3 of the way back to the saddle where Randy's waiting for us, and it's dark by now. And I got my route, I got my elevation. I nailed it going all the way over, or we did, and I'm gonna nail it coming back. And we get 2/3 the way back to that saddle. side hilling and negotiating, using the elk trails. And all of a sudden, I'm following these elk trails and they really start hooking uphill. And I tell Tim, I'm like, it's easier to follow these uphill than it is to try to keep just grading on a level grade, because you don't want to fight all these aspens and all, and they're really cutting uphill, like
straight uphill.
like straight up. And so I'm thinking, well, this kind of stinks because we're already almost to the level of the saddle, so I don't need to do this. But so against what I already subconsciously knew, I cut right over, and
so you kept going at the same elevation while the elk trails went uphill.
Right. I finally was like, because we got a lot of weight. I mean, I got all my camera gear, tripod, spotter, extra batteries, all my gear. I have a sandwich I packed all day and never ate. I got
Tyler keeps talking about the sandwich he packed around
because
for
the day before I didn't pack a sandwich,
going away.
I was so irritated.
And that's my fault, because Tyler's like, are we staying out all day? I'm like, well, no, we'll probably end up switching through an evening spot. So he didn't pack his sandwich.
That's my fault.
And we ended up staying all day.
I got up early just to make this giant turkey wrap that I packed around. It weighed like 4 pounds.
Size of a baby.
Yeah.
But we get over there and I leave these elk trails, which are like, it's like these big arrows pointing you uphill, like follow the trail. And we cut over, and there is a gorge literally that would swallow multiple semis. And I'm talking death-defying. There's probably carcasses laying in the bottom of this thing. And it's dark. Like, I've seen this in my headlamp, and Tim's a witness to it. And I actually was like, don't even come over here any farther, because it was so steep. One tumble and you're off the edge of it into it. And I don't know how I would have got you out.
It was about 10 steps from the edge of this. You can see that it's a massive ravine, but I'm about 10 steps from the edge of it, and I can't see the bottom.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, and these are little steps because you're dragging heavy weight and you're worn out, and I can't even get close to seeing the bottom. And uphill actually works a little easier with that rack because it'll lay level with the ground.
Right.
So keeping positive attitude, we veered away from the gorge, and we could have went down because we've seen the elk cross low, but we'd already grabbed all that elevation. And I'm thinking, Tim, let's just follow these elk trails up into what's more of an open than down into the burn and around and up again. And we went up and up and up and up, and I'm like, when is this going to end? And then the gorge splits. It splits in half, and I found an elk trail to cross a portion of the gorge, and it was still kind of sketchy, but I'm feeling pretty good, like this is it. And nope, the other branch of the gorge was still extremely gnarly.
The top of it was shaped like a Y, so I thought we were above the whole thing, and it turned out we were above one of the fingers, and the top of that Y, and the other one ran up even farther.
So we keep pushing up higher than that just to try to find another elk trail to get us through the next branch of the gorge. And I hear that I'm ahead, right? Because I'm feeling more nimble with not having the rack, and I'm trying to find trails and look out for us on route. And I just hear this commotion, like I think he tumbles down in the gorge. This is no joke.
You forgot about this part, but
no.
Guess not.
And so I'm yelling to Tim, and the wind's blowing, and it's pitch black, super, super steep, death-defying gorges on both sides of us. And you're not answering me. There's a big roll in the hill, and I can't see his headlamp. And
in fairness, I was answering, but it wasn't making it to him for a few physical limitations.
I didn't get to see it, but as Tim explains it, he goes to go underneath this blowdown, and the skull of the rack hooks up on it from one side, so he tries to pull back, and the rifle in the Faro gunsling hits the log on the other side, and he's pinned. So he can't go anywhere, and he's thrashing and breaking all these branches.
You have an edit button on this thing, right, Randy? We don't do it. No, it was close to that, right?
I was a little worried.
So
I was
like,
too
high to go over,
Tim?
For sure. And I thought, well, I got this. I'll just crawl under it. Well, when you're standing, when it's that steep of a hill, so eventually you kind of reach that point where you're just going. Yeah. I'm just going to you put one foot in front of the other.
For the audience who hasn't seen you, how tall are you, Tim?
6'3".
Okay.
And You reach the point, I think, on a lot of these elk hunts you do, where you just kind of, you know where you need to go, but you just keep putting a foot in front of the other one and you go. Well, I walk up to this thing and I think, well, I can't get over it, so I must be able to go under it, which makes perfect sense when you're on the downhill side. And then you start to go under it, and the ground is so steep that in order to come out the other side, there's about 4 inches of clearance.
Right.
And so I start under this, and I've got the gun in front of me in that gun bearer.
Yeah.
And I reach a point where I've slid under it, but now the ground is coming up sharply in front of me, and I can't go back because now the brow tines are hooked.
And for the listener's view picture, there's a death-defying gorge on both sides. Like, so all you got to do is tumble like one roll and you're gone. Like, and I heard all this crashing and I really thought, there is no way this just happened. Like, there is no way. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't even get down in there. So anyway, if you're safe, we got you out of there. You got yourself out of there. And
did a little tunneling. Had to do a little dig work to get the gun through and out there. But the crashing he was hearing was trying to break some of those dead limbs off to make a little room. And so I'm trying to reach back behind me as I'm pinned with my face in the dirt. I'm just laying there going, he's calling. I'm like, it's okay. Like, quietly, because the last thing I want him to do is turn around and see this.
Right.
Because I know he's got a camera. So I decided to be kind of quiet and figure out how to get out of it myself.
Oh, gosh. Well, I watched your guys' headlamps side hilling across that burn for an hour and a half. And I'm watching through my binoculars. I'm like, man, they only look like they're maybe a half mile away.
No, we were. It just took forever.
So you guys made it back in one piece at 8:30. You guys showed up to the saddle where we agreed to meet at 8:30.
Yeah.
And then we had another hour and a half hike, 2 miles down to the truck.
Never been so happy to walk 2 straight miles in my life.
Yeah, that was just cupcake.
That was great.
Yeah, I just watching you guys and seeing, how a lot of times you can watch what someone's headlamp is doing to see how they're having to negotiate the terrain. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's as bad as it gets over there. I am so thankful they talked me into staying over here.
Well, and one thing too to understand is when we had to negotiate these gorges, when we finally crossed the second one, which we crossed it in the very first possible place to do it, which is still sketchy.
It ran hundreds of feet up.
Sketchy.
Still, but it was narrower.
There's no elk trails because now we're trying to lose elevation back to the saddle.
Right.
There's no elk trails. So
they're smarter than us. They went around that gorge.
They know
they're not walking
that gorge
there.
is impassable. But where we did cross, we had some elevation to lose to actually hit the saddle. And without the trails and all those rocks on that burnt side hill, and I'm talking extremely steep.
Extremely steep, folks.
It stunk.
More than 45 degrees steep.
It was bad. You could touch the hill with your hand on the uphill side.
Yeah.
And poor Tim with the bull, he's having to essentially walk sideways.
Yeah, because of all the timber, the burnt.
I mean, I guess we could have flipped the rack up in the air, but then you're dealing with all the deadfall branches. So
above you.
It was the right way to do it.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's like.
And so we get home last night at 10:30, if you want to call it home. And we get up this morning and we decide, all right, we've got 2 hind quarters and 2 front quarters, and we're going to go bone it out and pack it out. And that's what we did all day. And as we're doing that, we're talking about the mental mindset of what it takes to actually go and do this, and how the mental mindset determines success or failure in most public land elk hunts. That it's really not by accident that, what's the story, 80% of the elk are killed by 20% of the hunters. On these tough public land elk hunts, it's just a mental game. You just have to say, you know what, this is what it takes, and if it's easier than that, hey, it's a good day. And whether it's the hunt, it's the conditions, or in this case, also add on an unbelievable extraction of the carcass. If you guys didn't have the mindset to go do it that way, it wouldn't have happened.
Well, you gotta look at it, right? I mean, that's so it's a 5-day season, so 360 days out of the year you look forward to this.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, when you're there, you kind of gotta turn a negative into a positive. We got to hike up to the top to get over there. No. You get to hike up there and walk back where other people won't be and find bulls that other people won't find. And then the reward, honestly, is bringing it out. And when it sucks and it's not going that great,
Well, and that's
you're
where
elk hunting, and you got to get a big bull, and it's, you just got to turn it into that.
And that's where that positive thinking is. It's like, there's good ways and bad ways to, in this case, extract the bull out of there. Well, our good way was not, for many, it would be like, screw that. But it was good considering what we had to go through the night before that we thought was the best way. It was not the best way.
No.
Even though it was easier in elevation, it just wasn't the best way. So we actually really grabbed a lot of elevation to go higher back down to lower than try to just keep our grade. And it was the good way.
You mean
it was
today?
just hard. Yeah.
Today. Yeah.
It was hard, but it was the good way to do it.
Yeah, like I told you guys as we were hiking out of there, once we caught the ridge again and got out of the canyon, is whatever pain it took to walk from that canyon to the ridge that we caught, it was not nearly as painful as watching you guys side hill in the dark last night. I've done it before, and it's the most miserable thing. And you get to where you're saying, Tim, you just want to get to where you're going.
Yeah,
it's just everything. Get out of my way. Just plow through. But yeah, what we did today, it wasn't the end of the world, but compared to what you guys did and what we've done on some other hunts, we've done a lot worse than what we ended up having to wrap up today.
Absolutely. I've watched some of the episodes, and I think anybody that's packed many elk out, there's none of them that are great, but that's the deal. And
there's a lot of worse things in life that one could be up against, and that's so I'd rather be packing tasty elk meat out of the mountains and hurting myself, putting myself through the pain, because the reward is how much you grow as a hunter and a person, really. I mean, it helps you in all aspects of life, but you put yourself in advertisement and you either wither away and fail or you succeed.
Right. Well, I always tell people when they're like, "Oh, I just didn't want to haul one out of there." Oh, really? What else were you going to do for those 2 days?
Yeah.
We came here to film a public land elk hunt, and we were able to do that just because of the mindset. If the mindset was, well, we don't really want to do that, or, oh, that's going to be a lot of work, then you're counting on luck more than you are just determination and skill. And if anyone has hunting luck like I have, I don't want to count on luck.
That's exactly right.
And Tyler said it many times when we've been out filming, we got to go create some luck today. And I think that's just a mindset of, if I work hard enough, my chance is going to come, and I got to be ready when it comes.
Yep.
And I can't be distracted by, oh, this is going to take me a day to get this out of here, or it's cold, or it's windy, or it's hot, or the full moon. Or speaking of full moons, you guys have any opinion on whether or not full moon affects hunting?
I think it absolutely does.
Do you?
Yeah.
Tyler?
Yeah, it can make things more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
but they still live there.
Right.
So as hard as you want to hunt, and you had a full moon and you shot a great bull, it's doable.
Yeah.
It's just, are you going to let that get into your head and change the way you think? Because you got 5 days. Are you going to complain about the full moon for 5 days, or are you going to go and create something?
Right.
And so.
Then we could have complained about the wind. Because the lowest
I did
winds,
complain about the wind.
I think we did a little
we
bit
all
of that.
complain about the wind as I sit here and feel these wind burns on my face and my lips. But we might have complained about it, but it was just the annoyance, not the focus. Mm-hmm. And the same with the heat.
And it wasn't a deterrent. didn't go back, and the windiest days were the days that Tyler didn't bring a sandwich and the day that Tyler didn't eat a sandwich. And, you're out all day, every day.
Right? The reason I want to talk about that, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about this hunt, but earlier I said that I think this depicts so much about public land elk hunting. And the part of it about public land elk hunting that I think is so applicable is the mental mindset part of it. I don't know how else to tell people that, it's not always going to be easy. Don't set your standard or your expectation that, this is going to be a cakewalk. And then anything above that, you walk away from and say, well, heck with that. It's just, every person I know who is successful on public land elk hunting has the mindset of, I don't really care how much work it is. This is what I came to do. This is what I enjoy doing. As sadistic as that may sound at times, and the way your body might protest.
There's not a lot of room for excuses.
And I think each time you put yourself in those positions of pushing yourself, an advertisement, and let's say this is kind of a new dawn for you, that's the only way you can reflect and build. And then you know when to make that decision and when you know when to hold back. I mean, ultimately, that's where a lot of success comes from with myself and people I respect a lot who are great hunters. They know when to really let it go. And then they know when to hold back, because it's just, and I always play, Randy's got different percentages in his philosophies, and I call it the 50% rule. If I see an opportunity, and I really apply this to bow hunting, but it goes for rifle. If I look at an opportunity and I feel I have a better than 50% chance of getting a shot, I go and I don't even think about how hard it's going to be. I just know that's what I want, and I go and do it. And if I think that I don't have a 50% chance, I save all that energy and I save all that mental awareness, and I try to apply it to that 50% chance when I finally get it.
When it does come up.
And sometimes it's 90. When it finally happens, I have 9 out of 10 chance I'm going to get that thing. And you don't want to spin your wheels and burn yourself out, but you know what? If you haven't done it a lot, you might have to a few times just to kind of figure that out, And that's the difference between if you want to be a successful mountain hunter and if you want to just go out and go through the motions and say you're one.
Yeah. And that mindset thing comes back to expectations. I think that the elk hunting world, or the mountain hunting world, but we'll talk about elk, has been fed false expectations of what it's like to hunt. And earlier I said these are different animals. Mature bulls on public land. They are. They are different. They don't they don't let their guard down. They push you to places you and other hunters probably don't want to go. Whereas if you set your expectations based on just what you see of private estate hunts, or some highly restricted, limited entry area, that's going to be a different outcome than hunting public land, mature bull elk.
Absolutely. Just totally different critter and totally different way of hunting.
Yeah. I think my home state of Montana has, if I remember right, a 14% success rate on bull elk on public land, or bull elk across the board. And I think if you took the 10% of what I'll call top tier elk hunters out of that, the success rate would be so minuscule. There are just some people who kill their elk every year.
They do.
And then there are those people who every year they're like, dang it, I don't know what I got to do. And I think sooner or later they do what Tyler says. They punch through that hesitation or that ceiling of, okay, it's just going to be this hard. And once they punch through that ceiling, all of a sudden they start killing a lot of elk. That's how it worked for me. Mm-hmm. I thought that my first 5 years of elk hunting, I thought there had to be an easier way. I'm smart, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm this or that. There's got to be an easier way. Well, easier way in public land elk hunting is relative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
and sometimes too, just so that, the listener's not thinking, oh, I got to go further, way back. You know what? I like to say, you got to think like an elk and go to the soft spots. You got to go to the places where people don't want to be. I mean, it doesn't have to be that far.
Right.
It just is so ugly and so thick and so nasty, or sometimes it is super far because it's just one of them places that doesn't get treaded. And, you can figure that stuff out when you start hunting a lot and putting yourself out there, and you realize, well, this is a very obvious, easy route, and I could easily go out this ridge, and I could easily cross right there. And so where's the soft spot from there? Where's the spot that the guys just are like, screw that?
Yeah.
And that's where the bigger bulls are going to be.
And I always say it's either distance or topography.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can also be boundaries.
Yeah.
I use private land boundaries to my advantage a lot, because a lot of people just don't want to screw with an area that has, possible restrictions or the complication of, oh man, I saw that bull, I can't go after him because he's not on public land. A lot of those places, elk tend to congregate right near those boundary areas because people will stray 3 miles from that public-private boundary. Now I'm like the camel is trying to get his nose under the tent. I'm not going to quite get my nose under the tent. I'm not going to do anything that, I completely respect private property, and I never would. But don't create such a huge buffer away from that either that you give up on those areas.
Because ultimately that's a soft spot. It can be.
It can be.
It's where the elk just don't get messed with.
Yeah.
And then they don't know the line. I mean, they do. They actually do. But
they come to learn it.
Yeah.
It's not like they read it on a map.
But they can slip up.
But that works both ways, right? And so some of my experience was private land. So we leased land, and the outfitter I worked for, that's an easy way to do guided hunts.
Right.
And I can tell you from experience that if you border public,
it's good hunting on the boundary.
We stay away from it too. I don't want to get over there by all the public.
Yeah.
And what it does is that's actually one of the best places on the private ranch to go hunt on the
because you're not treading it and the public's not treading
it.
So
this
it's a
buffer
soft spot
on both sides.
Right.
And so we stayed away. Well, I'm not going over there where everything's been shot at. It was quite the opposite, actually. Some of those boundaries were our best and most productive.
I can't believe I just told the audience that.
Well, there's a lot of people, boundaries.
Right. I mean, a lot of people already know that, but and that's why the Onyx maps, when they came out with their map chip, I was like dancing in the streets. I'm like, I have been looking for this forever, and it works as advertised. And I couldn't list all the times being able to hunt a soft spot, what Tyler called the soft spot between a public-private boundary, has resulted in, guess what? There's a lot of animals there. So, guys, you guys look tired.
Oh, I wonder why.
I feel a little bit tired.
I kind of got the cakewalk yesterday. I almost feel embarrassed. We shouldn't call it Fresh Tracks with Randy Newberg. We should call it Sitting on Your Ass with Randy Newberg or something, because we put on a lot of miles, but the worst part of this trip, the worst 6 hours of this entire hunt, I got to just sit there and glass and watch. And I almost feel like I cheated there, but
I don't know. It made a big difference to us knowing that we could turn around and check, and every time we'd turn around and check, you'd be down on the glass, and it's tough to do it without the tag and without the camera, so we know which two had to go over there.
Right. Yeah. Well, as we were walking out today, we were reminiscing about lots of fun hunts we've all been on. And I earlier described, if the listener could see in this room, all the grayness over in this chair and all the youth and vitality in the other chairs. But so many times people ask me, why do I do this? Why do you go on 10 or 12 mountain hunts a year? Why do you put your body through that? Why, blah, blah, whatever it might be. Why do you go sleep in tents 75 days a year? I do it because I can. I don't know. I guess it's because I'm a hunter. That's the simplest answer I can give to it. And over the course of time, you kind of gravitate your friendships and your hunting experiences to those people who they go and do it because they can. They have the health or they have the opportunity or whatever. And so this was one of those, I'm glad I was able to go and do it. And
we were glad you were there. And folks, don't let Randy fool you. He's talking about the youth and vitality over here. When it was time to just lean into the hill, and you can crisscross all you want with a heavy load. When it's time to just lean into it and go straight up, the man is a machine. I watched him going up there with that heavy load, and he kept me going for sure. I wanted to slack off and take some deep breathers, but the only way you get to the top is to keep walking. And
that's because if I would have sat down, I don't know that I could have got back up again. Or I was worried that if I sat down and started rolling, you guys had picked me. You guys had tell my wife he's down in the bottom of it.
He's in that gorge down there.
Because if you started rolling down one of those steep slopes with a heavy load,
that was it. You're not stopping.
Oh no, I just can't thank you guys enough. And one of the things that never happens on TV, and I try to talk about our camera guys, whether it's Tyler, it's been Troy and Lauren, it's been Marcus, whoever, is I've been lucky that my camera crew have been just some serious hardcore hunters, and I think they know the story to be told with that. And I've never hesitated to say, the cameraman glassed this or the cameraman saw that, because when we're out in the field, we got all eyes are on the hillside. It's not like, oh, Randy's the only guy out here with a pair of binoculars. And so this was another one of those hunts where having a quality team and crew is what's going to make our TV show something hopefully people want to watch. I don't know. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say something incriminating, but incriminating where my wife would have called and said, "What the heck did you say?"
Well, now you're going to get it anyway.
Yeah, now she's going to say, "What was it you were going to say?" Yep. So I should have just shut. Maybe we'll edit that part out of the
might need
podcast,
to. Yeah, you're asking for it with that one.
Yeah, but anyhow, folks, I'm going to ask these guys if they have any final comments. We've kind of wore out, when we first started the podcast, we'd close it with marital advice, but I think I've given all the marital advice I possibly can. So you guys have any, I'm not looking for marital advice for closing comments, but you guys got anything profound you want to leave the audience with? They're both looking at each other like, can he shut off?
Are you going to go first?
So we can have a beer?
I don't know. The only thing I can leave with it, I think you already nailed, is it's a mindset. Trying to get some of that stuff out. You look at it, you first stand up with the pack and you say, this is never going to happen. And 4 hours later, 5 hours later, 6 hours later, you're out. And it was more than worth it, right? And we're sitting here, we just got out today. And a huge grin on my face, even though I just, it's tough.
Yeah.
Stuff we did today was fairly tough.
Yeah.
But it's all the more rewarding at the end of it.
I don't know. I've been filming and hunting and pursuing my passion for, my whole life, but professionally for almost 20 years, probably 18. And I can just say that hunting hard and pushing myself and seeing what I'm made of, and it makes everything else in life kind of, I'm not going to say easy, but those are the hardest things I've ever been through, you know, and I look back on it, and if there's ever anything that can mold your character and define you and bring, you know, gain the respect from your colleagues, and, you know, I look back on that, and those are the most valuable things to me, is like the friendships I've made and the experiences I've gone through with somebody that I've met on the first time ever on a hunt, and we're lifelong friends, and that's happened a lot, and there has to be a reason why that is. And I think it's just a lot of, you dig so deep and there's so much raw emotion involved with truly hunting hard and then pulling the success out of that effort. And that to me is probably the most rewarding thing in my life, or I wouldn't have a career at it like I do, and a passion. When I'm not working, filming and testing product, I'm hunting.
Yeah.
And that's who I am. I don't really know anything else. I could work at Town Pump, maybe.
Town Pump is the gas station chain in Montana.
That's probably a good thing to clarify.
Yeah, because I know a guy who his wife refers to his old girlfriend as that.
Okay. Well,
that's why I clarified.
Maybe that's the wrong alternative career choice, but
You might be
anyway,
might be
I'm very,
perfect.
very blessed to do what I do for a living, and guys like Randy want me to come along and film, and companies I work with like Leupold and help product test. Couldn't be more blessed. So,
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to be on here, and my closing thought is a little bit more somber, and I hate to end it with this, but if this thought helps one person not get hurt, I hope it does. I got an email that Saturday a good friend of mine got killed in a hunting accident by an accidental discharge of a firearm. And this person was an unbelievable conservation person, a volunteer, and one of the most experienced firearms people I know. I believe at times he volunteered and taught hunter ed and other stuff. And so it just, whatever you do out there, people, be as safe as you can. There is no reason that you should walk around or store a firearm or whatever with a live round in the chamber. We, on the show, we never let anybody have a live round in the chamber until we are laid down on the packs or on the bipods. It's tragedies like that, to even the most experienced of people, that cause me to wonder, is it just bad luck? What could it be? And it doesn't really matter at this point. Eric was an amazing guy. But my message to all of you is, when you're out hunting this year, take that extra 2 seconds, take that extra minute to think it through, to be safe, where people are, how you're handling your firearm. Just do it. Don't get in a hurry. There's a lot more hunts in your front windshield, and be careful, be cautious, and have a lot of fun. So thanks for listening, folks. Tyler, Tim, thanks for being on the podcast, but mostly thanks for being such great guys and good hunters and making such what I think will be a great episode.
Thank you.
all right.
Take care, folks. We will have another one here. I think the next one will be from a Nevada mule deer camp. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Me, my son Matthew, my buddy Mike Spitzer, Eastern Nevada, late season mule deer. Thanks for listening.